Radio Calling. I am Sam, your host, and this is the music aspect of Radio Calling. Now, what this will contain is I will talk about a topic that I feel is necessary to talk about, obviously, but I will also give my top 5 favorite all-time list. So this could be top 5 favorite singers of all time, top 5 drummers of all time, etc. First of all, I want to talk about Chuck Berry, because he passed away at the age of 90 2 to 3 weeks ago, and he was laid to rest over this past weekend. Where do I even begin with Chuck Berry? I mean, he's one of the rock and roll pioneers. That's a given. He's also influenced everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. Rolling Stones, Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, George Thorogood, Jimi Hendrix, list goes on and on. I mean, the way he would take a riff, I mean, his riffs are legendary at this point, and just make it so simple and so his own is just amazing. And his wording and his lyrics of songs are just one in a million. And he was, like I said, he's a rock and roll pioneer, and he is greatly missed. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he is the last Cadillac Records pioneer, meaning that everybody else passed away before him. Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, Etta James, and now Chuck Berry. Those are the main people that, when I think of Cadillac Records, those are the people that I associate with that. So, Chuck Berry was, one in a million. And he influenced me to get a hollow body, because I wanted a hollow body guitar. And I saw him playing one, and I thought, I want that Chuck Berry sound. And I want something that looks and feels like Chuck Berry's guitar. And I got a red hollow body guitar, and every time I look at it now, I think of Chuck Berry. And John Lennon played a hollow body guitar, and that was influenced by Chuck Berry. John Lennon said that if rock and roll ever had a different name, it would be Chuck Berry, because he is one of those people that you just you think rock and roll Chuck Berry instantly. And he was a great talent, and he's just one of those people that really, really got rock and roll off its ground. And I want to talk about the influence of early rock and roll and where it came from. And my theory is rock and roll is basically blues and country, and everything either starts with country, gospel, or blues. Those are the big three, as I would say, of early rock and roll. You look at Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry's in there, Elvis Presley. They all have kind of country, blues, gospel aspects to it. Now, obviously, Hank Williams and Johnny Cash were pretty much country, but Johnny Cash had a couple of his albums that were kind of rock and rollers, very rockabilly. That's where the term comes from. It's a mixture of country and rock. There you go, rockabilly. Jerry Lee Lewis, I believe, is the only. Well, Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard are still the only rock and roll pioneers that are still alive. And one of the things I want to say to these people listening here is that we really need to go back and listen to these roots. Everybody goes back and listens to what influences them, or they listen to an artist and this artist will say, oh, I really like Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis. Those were my influences growing up. And that'll make the person that's listening to this artist go back and listen to that, which I love, because that's how I got into Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, just because I'm a Springsteen fan. Springsteen said he got a lot of his influence by Hank Williams in that early country. So what I did was I went back and I looked at, country, early country, Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, and I really started to like it. And I'm really a fan of, Hank Williams and Johnny Cash and that early kind of twangy country. Because country now is not country. It's Tom Petty put it, it's bad rock and roll music with fiddle, and I agree with that. Um, Country now is just it sounds all the same. It's just I don't want to even go there. I'll save that for another topic. But anyways, I want to go back to Chuck Berry because Chuck Berry he was an innovator. He was someone that you know he set the standard for so much, and how he played guitar is everybody tries to kind of imitate Chuck Berry now. Keith Richards is someone that really, really, really liked Chuck Berry, and really his style of guitar playing is based on Chuck Berry. You see that in the documentary "Hail Hail Rock and Roll" with Chuck Berry. That kind of, I believe it celebrates, I think his 50th birthday, Chuck Berry's 50th birthday. Don't quote me on that. Look it up. I'm pretty sure it's on sale on Amazon. It's very hard to find YouTube clips of it. So, but you know, Keith was very into Chuck Berry. He was very into the blues, but I would say Keith Richards' main influence was Little Walter and Chuck Berry. And in this documentary, Keith Richards gets to play behind Chuck Berry because Chuck Berry never had like an actual band. It was always Chuck Berry and a backing band, which I found very interesting because he would just. I think Bruce Springsteen told the story that one night the E Street Band backed him up for a concert one night, and it was about 10-15 minutes before they were supposed to go on. Chuck Berry's not around yet, and about 5-10 minutes before they were supposed to go on, he shows up, rolls up in his own car, no entourage, and has his guitar in hand, plugs into an amp, and Bruce says, what are we going to play? We don't know what you want to play. What do you want to do? And Chuck just turned to him and said, just follow me. I'll let you know what I'm going to play, and we'll go from there. And I feel that's he's very innovative on how he goes about doing things. Keith Richards said once that Chuck Berry wouldn't go on until he had the money up front because he's been screwed over before in previous decades where he would not get the money that he was promised and he would play, essentially playing for free. But going back to the Keith Richards story, in this documentary, they're getting ready for this concert, which has Etta James. Julian Lennon is in it as well. Eric Clapton, and then a bunch of great musicians behind Chuck Berry. But they're trying to play, they're rehearsing in Chuck Berry's club or his hangout area that he had back in the day. And they're trying to play Carol, which is a Chuck Berry staple, and Keith is playing the opening riff. And he plays this riff, and to my ear, it sounds fine, but to Chuck's ear, it's off. And he quickly stops the song and says, "You're not playing it right. It's a bend up from this fret, not this fret." So they start again. Keith plays the riff again. Again, it's wrong. And this goes on for at least, they go through this song at least a couple times, and Keith still can't get it, and you can see the tension rising between both Chuck and Keith Richards, and after not getting it right again, Keith just says, I can just play rhythm part all day. I mean, if you want to play the opening riff, be my guest. It's your riff anyways. I mean, Keith was getting angry at this point, and you could see it, and a lot of awkward looks from the drummer to the bassist to the piano player, and just what's going to happen next? Are we going to have a fight here, or are we just going to have just a little scuffle? But that's how Chuck Berry was. He was a perfectionist, and he wanted things to be done the right way, and he wanted riffs to be played the way he heard them in his ear. And finally, Chuck plays the bend, Keith does the rest of the song, and everything works out fine. So that's just one of the, excuse me, that's just one of the things that when I think of Chuck Berry, I think of him as perfectionist, amazing guitar player, and a lyricist, one that could phrase, you know, different things together and make it sound good and make it sound simple too. And you see his lyricism in a lot of things. You see it in Springsteen songs. You see it in the early Beatles songs. A lot of their stuff on with the Beatles, and then uh, early Rolling Stone stuff as well. Because that, like I said, Rolling Stones, Beatles, Springsteen, those were all people that were influenced by Chuck Berry, and that's just a short list of people that are influenced by Chuck Berry. And a lot of people don't understand that, and or don't realize that how big of a influence Chuck Berry is. And I just want to get that across to people, is that Chuck Berry was someone that everyone wanted to be. Everybody wanted to imitate him. Everybody wanted to write songs like him, and he was just one of the best to grace this earth. And if I may add this in here, I do believe he's the only person that has a single up in orbit, or had a single up in orbit at one time. Johnny B. Good was up in, I think, one of the space stations for the U.S. or something, but it was up in the Earth's atmosphere for quite a while, going around. So I'm pretty sure that's the only thing or the only time that's been done. So rest in peace, Chuck Berry. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but I want to go back to this topic of, rock and roll basically is blues and country. When you look at early, very, very, very early rockabilly, rock and roll, you can see there's a lot of influences of country, gospel, and blues. And that's where everything starts. It starts with gospel on Sundays or during the weekends when you go to church. And then it starts when, very, very early when there were still slaves around, and blues was born out of that. It was time to pass the time when people were in the fields picking cotton or doing other things. And then country is just a little different. I mean, it started around that same time too. It started with someone picking up a guitar and just singing whatever comes to mind. And you can see that very early country is very, very interesting to listen to. That Delta blues is very interesting to listen to. The Robert Johnson, the early Elmore James stuff, Lightning Hawkins, stuff of that nature. And it's really, really stripped down. Just a person in a guitar, singing whatever they want to sing and whatever they feel at the time. Sunhouse is the same way with that. Jack White, who is a big fan of Sunhouse, said that his favorite song of all time is "Grinning in Your Face," which is just Sunhouse singing and him clapping. And it's really it's one of those songs where you have to listen to the lyrics to really understand what he's talking about. But it's so basic but so powerful at the same time. And that's how a lot of the songs back then were. They were so basic, but they had a lot of power behind it, and they had a message to those songs. And people should go back and listen. I mean, if you want to expand your knowledge of the blues and early country and gospel, go back and listen to Sunhouse, Lightning Hopkins, Elmore James, and Robert Johnson, people of that nature. Another person that Keith Richards was influenced on was Robert Johnson, and Keith Richards really, really loves the blues and loves to play it. And many of the Rolling Stones have said this, is they were never considered a rock and roll band when they started. They wanted to play blues, and that's all they did was they played, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Robert Johnson, Little Walter, stuff of that nature, and that's who they were influenced by. They wanted to be a blues band. They never wanted to be a rock and roll band. And I Can't Get Satisfaction is one of those songs that I feel Muddy Waters wish he would have wrote, or Howlin' Wolf wish he would have wrote, because it's very bluesy, it's very blues-esque, and you can feel it in the lyrics and the feel of that whole song. But Howlin' Wolf is one of those people that I didn't recognize his talent until I was about 20 or so, and I really liked his voice. Really liked that gruffness in his voice, that kind of growling type esque of Howlin' Wolf, and I really started to research, everything about Howlin' Wolf. What has he done? Picked up a couple records of his, listened to those all the way through, listened to him again all the way through, and I really, really liked the way he played slide guitar. He wasn't known for playing an instrument, but he could play a slide guitar with the best of them, and he could play the harmonicon, which the Rolling Stones saw this, and they wanted, when the Beatlemania and the British invasion was going on, they wanted to have Howlin' Wolf on their tour because they wanted to show people that Howlin' Wolf is someone that you should appreciate and you should listen to because he's so good, and the words and songs that he put out should be listened to by more people. And I believe Brian Jones said it in one of the interviews before Howlin' Wolf went on. He said this to the reporter. He said, "I think you need to shut up so we can talk, so we can listen to Howlin' Wolf, because that's all I want to hear is Howlin' Wolf right now." And he didn't want to do the interview. And you see, a lot of people bring in, their influences on their tours when they started, which I believe is the greatest compliment you can do when you're starting out. Is you have this influence, you want your audience to hear this music, and that's one of the reasons why I started to listen to Little Walter. I remember him getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I remember watching his, they do like an intro video talking about his life, or the artist's life, what they did to contribute to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or what they did to contribute to music in general. And I remember that those songs that they played during the narration, I remember those stuck in my head. And I didn't really do any research, but then I remember when Cadillac Records came out, the movie, and just a side note, anybody that wants to hear and listen to the music of Cadillac Records and learn about the history behind Cadillac Records, you should check out this movie because it's a good movie. It's got Beyonce in it. Beyonce's always good, but it's really interesting to see how this Cadillac Records started. And I went there. I actually went to the actual Cadillac Records, and to walk around those rooms where Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Little Walter, Etta James, where they all were at one point, is just it's undescribable, the feeling you get when you stop into that area. But going back to Little Walter is someone that, in my opinion, is probably the best harmonica blues player of all time. The things that he did with the harmonica, I can't even do. Then again, I'm not the greatest harmonica player, but those things that he does with the harmonica, I want to do. And I've tried to do, but I don't have the lung capacity to do it. So that's a little bit of a problem, of course. Then asthma helps with that as well. But he did things that people don't think of doing now, and you see harmonica players now that use a lot of what Little Walter do. The way they position a mic to the harmonica, position their amp, all this stuff, and it's crazy to listen to Little Walter now and just to think he was an innovator as well. All these people were innovators: Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Chuck Berry again, Etta James, all those early people that influenced so many people. I mean, this is going to probably be the main message of this first episode: is these people influenced so many people. So many people, I can't even name all of them because I will probably forget several people that were influenced by these people. And again, Little Walter is someone that influenced me to pick up a harmonica and really take it seriously and try to do the things that he does with a harmonica, but I can't because it's just impossible. I don't want to say he is the Jimi Hendrix of the harmonica, but he's very close to what Jimi Hendrix did to a guitar, Little Walter did on a harmonica. Now, speaking of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I want to just put it out there that I believe this person should be in the Hall of Fame. He should have been in there a long, long time ago, way before some of these people that are already in the Hall of Fame are in. And that is Joe Cocker. The Mad Dog with Soul. If you haven't seen that documentary, you need to check it out. It's on Netflix right now. It's a great documentary talking about the life of Joe Cocker and what he did to rock and roll and what he did to soul music as well. And it they talk about this in the documentary. It baffles me why he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And what I don't understand is why hasn't someone put him on the ballot? Billy Joel is someone that has pushed for several years to get him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but of course the committee has not put him in. And I want to know is why? Why is he not in? What criteria does he not meet that he's not in the Hall of Fame? And I wanted to look at, how someone gets into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And here's what I found. The first criteria, and basically the main criteria, is that you are eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25 years after your first release of your first record. So, Joe Cocker has been eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for many, many years now, because I'm pretty sure his first album came back out in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, or close to. But he is still not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it angers me that he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And, you see these people that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before him. Two people that come to mind are Tupac and Public Enemy, which, nothing against these two, but Tupac is very influential on how people rap today and how words are put together, which, congratulations to Tupac for getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But Joe Cocker needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before these people. That's all I'm saying. You line up all the work Joe Cocker has done versus some of these people that are newly into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Tupac, Public Enemy, and I will take Joe Cocker over them any day. His Woodstock performance is probably one of my favorite performances of all time, and that was his introduction to the U.S., was Woodstock, which is, in my opinion, his Woodstock performance is probably one of the best Woodstock performance of that grand lineup. You have a lot of great bands that performed at Woodstock. CCR, Hendrix closed out Woodstock. The band, the Mamas and the Papas. No, not the Mamas and the Papas. Jefferson Airplane. That's who I'm thinking of. Janis Joplin. People of that nature. But Joe Cocker always stands out as one of those people that really brought the house down when he went on the stage, and that was his introduction to the U.S. And he is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Why is he not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I want to start a petition. I want to do whatever I can to get him in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because the committee takes into consideration votes on fan votes, and I'm proud to say that I partake in these votes because I want to see people that I like in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I don't want to see people that don't need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right now, but they will get in. Eventually, years from now, they should be getting in. But, people, these rock and roll pioneers and these soul pioneers, they're all getting older. They're all passing away, and we need to get them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before they pass away, so we don't have, people accepting awards on their behalf. Joe Cocker needs to be in the Hall of Fame. That's all I'm saying. And it really, really, I think you can tell by the tone of my voice, it angers me that he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he should be. And Billy Joel has made a petition. I said this before. Billy Joel has made a very, very stern effort to get him in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I want to know how I can help to get him at least on the ballot. So he's on the ballot. He's not even on the ballot. He hasn't been on the ballot, to my knowledge, at all, which, again, angers me. And he needs to be on this ballot because he's one of the greatest soul singers, rock and roll singers of all time, and he ranks on my top 10 or top 5 all-time favorite singers list, which I will get to later. But he needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it really angers me that he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before these people that have, you know, 90s, 80s acts that are already in the Hall of Fame. And I think Eddie Trunk made this evident in his serious radio show that he does not like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame only because they are so biased. And people, Joe Cocker. Let me back up. Joe Cocker is not the only one that should deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well. There are other bands that have been shut out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Two that come to mind are Thin Lizzy and Motorhead. Both are great rock and roll influences that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they both meet the criteria of 25 years after their first album release. And they're still not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Motorhead influenced Metallica. Metallica is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So is Black Sabbath, I'm pretty sure. And they are both in before Motorhead. And it's just, oh my God, it's just so crazy to think that these people are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. And, you know, Lemmy just died 2 years ago, and we could have gotten Motorhead in before he died, but no, now he's passed on, and now Motorhead's no more, and there's the original lineup for Motorhead have all passed away, and it's sad to see that they're not getting the recognition they need and they deserve, because their music influenced so many people, Thin Lizzy included. And Thin Lizzy was another influence of Metallica, and Metallica covered one of their traditional songs that they used to do. And it's just, why are people not realizing that these people need to be in the Hall of Fame? I want to know who's on this committee, and these people need to be slapped in the face because they're not putting the right people in the Hall of Fame. And well, they are putting the right people in the Hall of Fame. Let me backtrack. They are putting the right people in the Hall of Fame, but some of these people, Thin Lizzy, Motorhead, Joe Cocker, they all need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. That's all I'm saying. Is they need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame already, and it's just, like I said, Eddie Trunk has said this before. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is very biased, and it's just a shame that these people aren't getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, moving on, I want to talk about my top 5 list for the day. Today's list will be top 5 favorite singers of all time. Number 1, of course, Joe Cocker. I don't need to rehash and get all worked up again about how much I love Joe Cocker, but he's my number 1 favorite singer of all time. Number 2 is Ray Charles. Ray Charles influenced Joe Cocker, and I feel Ray Charles is one of the greatest soul singers of all time, and he is not called Mr. Soul for nothing. And he can cover any song, any genre. He goes from, his early stuff was, easy listening jazz type stuff, his R&B kind of soulish, and then he did a whole album of country because, again, going back to his roots was country. And he can cover anything. I mean, one of his greatest songs is What I Say, which is one of my favorite songs. I actually have 45 of it because I love it so much. And when I put on Ray Charles is someone that, I never skip a song when I put on his albums. I can listen to his albums all the way through. Love every song. Love the way he sings. Love the way he plays. And he also was very, very talented that he played multiple instruments. You could play saxophone, you could play piano, you could play, a little bit of drums and stuff like that. I mean, you see him just a game changer is one word that describes Ray Charles. Ray Charles is a game changer. Another game changer is Etta James. Etta James is one of those people that, she could hold her own with voice, and she did what she wanted, and she sung the way she wanted, and she's Again, going back to those gruff kind of singers, she had a very gruff kind of feminine voice to her, and I really like that about her. And I really like the way she sings. She's a very soulful singer, but she can also be very, very mean and very, very angry when she sings as well. And some of those performances on YouTube where you see her sing "I'd Rather Go Blind" and she's into it, but she's also very angry as well, and you can hear it in her voice, and it's just one of those things where you love the way she sings and you admire the way she sings as well. My fourth pick is Otis Redding. Otis Redding was taken from us way too soon. I feel like if he would have not gone on that plane, probably would have lived on till his late 80s, early 90s. It's just that simple. And you see that a lot with artists. That seems to be the mo of great rock tragedies. Is they get on a plane or they get in a helicopter and it crashes and it takes them way too soon. Buddy Holly is pretty much the main one that people think of when they think of plane crashes and music. But you got to think of Leonard Skinner dying in the plane crash. Stevie Ray Vaughan died in a helicopter crash. It's just the unsung. Well, it's not a hero, but it's the unsung story of how people or artists have died. Is plane crashes, helicopter crashes, bus crashes. I'm pretty sure a couple people have died through bus crashes or bus related incidents. Cliff Burton died while he was sleeping in the bus. I think it was hit by a plane or a low-flying plane. Again, just the underlying story of many artists. But going back to Otis Redding is one of those people that he's very soulful, and I really like the way he sings, the way he conducted himself, and his Monterey Pop performance is one of the best performances I've ever seen in my life. And to hear him conduct a band, conduct a crowd, and saying, this is the love crowd, that's just one of the things that I remember hearing about him and watching that footage, is that his presence was something that's just unbelievable and something that people imitate to this day. And that's one of the things that I've always wanted to. I've never set out to be a singer in my life, but I've always wanted to. If I ever were to take up singing, he would be the one that would influence me in the way that he conducts himself on stage. And Joe Cocker is another one of those people. Going back to Joe Cocker, Joe Cocker. They say this in the documentary, the Mad Dog with Soul documentary that's on Netflix, that he played air guitar before anybody else played air guitar. Joe Cocker used his whole body as an instrument to feel the music and to just get his message across, and he just wove himself in between the music and just created himself a new feeling. And that's one of the things Otis did as well. He didn't play air guitar like Joe Cocker did, but he conducted himself in a manner that is very similar to Joe Cocker and Otis Redding, or not Otis Redding. I'm sorry, Ray Charles. And you can just see it, and he loves being up on stage, and he loves singing, and you can see that. And rounding out my top 5 is Tina Turner, which when I was thinking about what kind of my favorite artists do I like, who do I like the most, who do I just enjoy listening to and hearing them sing, and the common theme of my all-time favorite singers is they're all kind of soul-based singers, which is why I sing the way I do. I'm not one to sing like a metal singer trying to scream my head off or anything, but my voice is very soulful, and I've realized this over the years because I like soul singers, and I like the stuff that they put out. Stax Records, Atlantic Records, Cadillac Records, all those kind of hotbeds for soul singers. Motown too, is kind of a hotbed for singers, and I, I really like soul singers, and Tina Turner is a soul singer, and she when she was with Ike Turner, they put out great songs, and then later hearing about how abusive Ike Turner was and how he was treating Tina Turner terribly, and watching that whole movie, What's Love Got to Do with, which is another great biopic movie about the life of Tina Turner and how she kind of handled Ike Turner and how she dealt with it. And I felt bad for her, but you could hear a lot of her pain and a lot of her suffering in her voice. And some of those songs you wouldn't get that if someone else sung those songs. And soul singers are, that there's a reason why they call them soul singers, is they touch your soul and they make you feel things that other rock singers or country singers, they don't touch you the same way as soul singers do. And it's just, once again, that's why I sing the way I sing, is I'm a soul singer by trade. One of the things that if someone said I were to describe my voice, I would say I'm like a poor Mick Jagger. A poor man's Mick Jagger is what I would describe my voice. And Mick Jagger is one of those people that wanted to be a soul singer, or he really liked soul singers, and he really liked Tina Turner. And Tina Turner, the legend is Tina Turner taught him how to dance and how to move the way he does on stage, is all because of Tina Turner. You see Tina Turner back in the days where she had her backup singers, and they would get out and dance and do things of that nature. And it's just, I give her all the props in the world. I mean, she's still, I don't think she's touring now, but if she puts on a concert, she still souls out that concert, and she still puts on one hell of a show. And kudos for her. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, once again, I mean, one of those influences that influences so many people, and all these people on my all-time favorite singers list influence so many people, and it's just one of those things. Now, my honorable mention. First is Curtis Mayfield. Again, I'm sticking with the soul theme, and then the next two are also kind of soul based as well. But Curtis Mayfield, it's one of those people I really wish I could sing like him. I really wish I could hit those high notes like he could. And I try in the car, and I try. I don't hit them as exactly well as he does, but his high pitch and his high level of voice is just something that you see a lot of people try to imitate. Bruno Mars is someone that he tries to get up there, and he tries to get up to those high notes that Curtis Mayfield he would hit on a regular basis. And it's one of those things where Hendrix was very influenced on Curtis Mayfield in the way he played guitar and the way he played soulful licks on the guitar. And you can see that in Hendrix's playing. Have you ever been to Electric Ladyland, the opening song to Electric Ladyland from Hendrix? Hendrix is singing in a higher octave than he usually does. And that's all because of Curtis Mayfield. That is a Curtis Mayfield-based song. And you can tell that Hendrix was listening to Curtis Mayfield at that time when he was putting out that song. And the guitar working on that song is just crazy, and it's one of those things you have to listen to it really without the voice in it, which there's a Hendrix box set out there that I can't remember the name, but it has the instrumental work of Have You Ever Been to Electric Ladyland on it, and you can hear that Hendrix is listening to Curtis Mayfield around that time, and he's very influenced on Curtis Mayfield, and then you add his voice in there, and it's just like you can hear Curtis Mayfield in every note Hendrix is playing in that song. My second honorable mention is David Ruffin, another soulful singer, another R&B type singer, another pop singer, if you want to say, but those Temptation songs where he sang on those singles are just fabulous, and I really like David Ruffin. And watching the Temptation story, which is always on VH1 Classic, that's like 6 hours long or 5 hours long, but there's a lot of content in that movie. But it's really good, and it's really interesting to see how the Temptations got together, how they found David Ruffin, and then how they kind of crumbled with David Ruffin in the band. But he's a good singer. I love the way he sung. I love the way that he, would hit all his notes and how he would phrase and how he would conduct himself on stage. And he's just one of those singers where he spoke to a generation. His voice is so recognizable. If you play any of his songs now, instantly it's Temptations. You can hear that in anything that he sung on. So he is in my honorable mention. And then my last one, Felix Cavallari of the Rascals / Young Rascals. There is a person that has taken all the influence that I talked about before, Ray Charles, Joe Cocker, Etta James, Otis Redding, and he wants to imitate them. And he's a Caucasian person who wants to be an African American singer. And Joe Cocker's another one of those people that, when they heard him right away, they thought, oh, this person's African American. This has got to be like a very bulky African American singer. But no, it's a Caucasian English man. And it's just interesting to see how many people are influenced by, Ray Charles, Etta James, Otis Redding, Joe Cocker, a lot of the soul singers, as I said before. And it's interesting to see Felix, take on this soulful voice. And those songs that they put out, the Rascals put out, are really soulful. And, they are one of those people that speak to me and hit the soul again. I mean, a lot of these people that are on my favorite singers of all time list are people that have touched my soul and really made me feel and really make me feel alive, and I can really connect to their bodies of work. So those are all my people on my top 5 favorite singers of all time, plus my honorable mention. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Radio Calling. Thank you for joining me. I am Sam again. Join me Tuesday when my good friend Devin will be back for part 2 of our conversation of sports. So you don't want to miss that. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at LondonCalling22, all one word. And be sure to be on the lookout for the next episode of Radio Calling.